to another episode of Listen St. Louis with Carol Daniel. Thank you so much for joining us. This is an ongoing partnership that I have been so thrilled by and humbled, let me tell you, between 9PBS, between this podcast, and the Missouri Historical Society. I have written about how this came to be, so go read that blog at 9pbs.org. So thank you so much for joining us. This has been a lesson. Every single episode is a lesson, and that was our intention. And when you want to know about history, where do you go? You go to Cecily Hunter, the public historian for the African American Initiative, who joins me once again. It's so good to see you, my dear.
Yes, and you too, Carol. Thank you again for having me.
The big question is, how are the twins? Oh. They are one.
Yes.
This woman has twins at home.
They are well and thriving and living life, and we're enjoying each other.
You're making history.
Thank you, Carol.
Absolutely. So first, we are going to talk about William Blue. My father was a veteran, and I remember growing up on Fort Leonard Wood, and I could hear revelry in the morning. I could hear, I went to military parades as a child, change of command parade. So to know that William Blue was a composer and a band leader in World War I is remarkable.
Certainly is. And I love his story and I love the tie-in. So just to let all the viewers know, there is a diary that he kept. And so that's what we're going to get into today, sharing this story. But the story actually has a root and it's tied to that diary that we'll speak of. So he was born to George and Mary Blue on July 25th, 1875 in Bloomfield, Missouri. He eventually would marry Eva Mapp by about 1898, and then they would journey to St. Louis, and that's when his story begins here. So he is so talented in the ways that he is able to become and be called the professor. And so just to give you some sheer numbers of his impact in the crowds that he's standing before and how he's conducting and leading a brass band of 50 Black music professionals, it was estimated that there were 20,000 people. 20,000 people at Hanlon's Park, and he's leading this brass band of all these great musicians. And this would have been during an Emancipation Day celebration in 1912. So just to show a little bit about his impact, like he's doing some pretty tremendous things in St. Louis. So in
1912 in St. Louis,
yes,
there was a band.
Yes.
That played a band of Black men.
Yes.
Most likely all Black men.
Most likely, yes, ma'am.
Before 20,000 people.
Yes. And so just to think about that, like these are incredible numbers. And maybe it was overestimated. Maybe it wasn't quite 20,000, but just to know that he is impacting St. Louis musical environment in such a huge way is just, it's wild just to think of.
And at a time where the East St. Louis race riots were in this time period.
Yes.
We are still not a completely free society in this period.
Yes.
And yet he is able to achieve in this way and then serve his country.
Yes, exactly. And so I'm going to take you through World War I.
Okay.
So he arrives at New Jersey's Camp Dix training camp roughly about March 7th of 1918. And then he's appointed as the lead bandmaster. And then he's elevated to what's called the regional bandmaster of the 350th Field Artillery Band of the 92nd Division. So to be able to get this level of expertise, of musical inclination, and even rise to have these types of titles, it would have been a huge thing. So this is no small feat at all. But he really is a skilled bandmaster, composer, the cornetist, and so much more.
And also, we want to reflect on the fact that in World War I, about 200,000 deployed to Europe. He is one of those.
Right.
And the majority of African Americans were relegated to lower skilled positions in the military during the war.
Yes.
The majority, not everyone.
Yes, correct. Right. Not everyone, but, he is climbing in such a way and is so skillful that he's actually given these incredible titles and is serving in this particular way.
So am I right to think, we think of a variety of war movies where the band is leading them into
Yes.
battle.
Yes. Yes.
That's what's happening.
That's what's happening. So he is having such an impeccable career. And this small diary that I speak of, that
you say small. How many pages is it?
Well, it's 136 pages,
but it's a
small little booklet. Yes. And so, just to give you a little information about what would have been in this diary. So he had his residence recorded. So it was 2655 Bernard Street in St. Louis. He also lists his next to kin. He lists his wife, his children, and sisters as well. He goes on to even have some accounts in his diary where he talks a little bit about his enlistment at Jefferson Barracks and then his time in training camp and his thoughts and reflections while he's even over in France. And then there's even some poems. So
he wrote some poetry.
Yes, he wrote some poetry.
During World War I.
Yeah, I know. And it just reminds me of even my own diary. When I write in my journal, the things that I might be experiencing on a daily, or if there's a thought that sparks possibly a poem or something just as a reflective moment. But it's through the diaries that we're able to see through the minds of these individuals at these particular times in history. And so he did make a quote, a reference to being a performer and leading this band. And he talks about
France.
In France,
Mm-hmm.
yes, in France. And he talks about this particular moment, and he says, every concert was received with a continuous applause until we gave the last number.
Wow. It is recorded in a variety of ways by any number of people how musicians were received in France, how black soldiers were received in Europe and received well.
Yes.
And were shocked. First, it's the first time you're overseas, first time you're in a foreign country, and you're leaving segregation and then seeing you're seeing Europeans who receive you well.
Right.
And it's a first for them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And the diary also has some translations in language between English and French.
Okay.
So I'm just projecting that these would have possibly been words that he would have been using
while he was there
in France.
Yeah.
So, words like battle, march, bridge, courage, bullet, like these would have been possibly things that he would have utilized within this small little diary.
And you know what is in this diary because you've seen it, because it exists today.
Yes, it does.
Where?
At the Library and Research Center. So the Library and Research Center is a part of the Missouri Historical Society, as well as the History Museum, Missouri History Museum, and Soldiers Memorial as well. So you could go to the Library and Research Center and you can actually observe this diary and thumb through it, as I did when I did this research.
Is this the typical, I have to put on gloves, I have to, I mean, really, is that the way I see it in movies? I want to be that person who puts on the white gloves and handles something from the 1900s.
Carol, you are hilarious. So we also have it digitally too. So
I know I want to see the real thing, Cecily. Come on.
Yes, you can certainly go and see the real thing.
That's amazing.
So
That's
really
just
cool.
amazing.
Yeah. And even while he's in France, he's even reflecting on a moment that just would have happened not too long ago in 1917 with the East St. Louis Race Massacre. So can you imagine him thinking about what's going on in St. Louis's regional history, right? In that moment that struck a chord in so many different ways for so many people across the country.
For sure.
But he's reflecting on that in France, and he says, we see the famous square of East St. Louis made famous because of the innocent lives ruthlessly murdered on its bosom in the race riot of July 2nd, 1917, murdered without cause in the mid of day, while their homes were burned amid cries and screams of suffering women and children, with police, city officials, and United States soldiers looking on, and yet no redress by law processed against the outrage, save a few paltry words of regret.
So we've often wondered what were the thoughts of those knowing about these horrific events, and we have it in his hand, in his diary.
Yes, written in his own script. We have reflections on that moment in time and how he's reflecting internationally on the impact that something here in the East St. Louis area, in the St. Louis region, how this impacted him and how it impacted others.
And not to mention, my husband is a veteran also, and my three brothers. And so many in my life have worn the uniform of this nation.
Yes.
And so I just got to chill, to be someone wearing the uniform, representing your country in World War I.
Yes.
And what he reflects on is others also in uniform.
Right.
Doing nothing.
Yes.
While homes burn and people die.
Yes. Yeah. So
that's heartbreaking.
It really is. It really is. And it just, again, it goes back
Yeah.
to the mind of the individual and their reflections at a given moment in history. And so he would go on, he returns to St. Louis and he's serving in a multitude of different ways. He has his own band, the William Blue Band, but he also leads the Haskell's and Blues School of Music in St. Louis. He's the founder of the Shriners Band, and he even organized and supported concerts that were happening in St. Louis halls. He's doing a lot within his time frame, and these concerts were considered to be high-class educational concerts. They were considered by the St. Louis Palladium to be these sacred concerts that were taking place. And so this is a place where people could go and exercise their skill among this individual who is doing incredible things within our area.
Cultured, a part of the culture.
Yes.
Yes,
a part of the culture.
Yes,
thank you.
Absolutely.
Yes.
And a part of his legacy, too, is his son of the same name, who also became a musician, I understand.
Yes, as well. Yeah.
And he is buried...
He is buried at St. Peter's Cemetery in North County.
So not only can you go and see the diary of William Blue, but his grave is there.
Yes, as well.
Is here as well. You can go pay our respects to a man who did so much against all odds, really.
Yeah. So we're so thankful at the Missouri Historical Society to be a place where people can come and to learn more about their St. Louis history. We're taking on the charge and have taken on the charge to be the preservers of that history. And so we hope that viewers would come to the Library and Research Center and to the other two branches, the Missouri History Museum and to Soldiers Memorial as well, and be able to be inspired by what they see and hear.
Thank you, Cecily.
Thank you so much, Carol.
All right, we're going to talk more. We're not finished with this partnership yet, so we have more to come.
Yes.
But it's so good to see you as always.
You as well.
Cecily Hunter, the public historian of the African American Initiative at the Missouri Historical Society. We will talk about some other historical moments and people, so do not miss our conversations. We thank you for joining us on 9 PBS on our YouTube channel. We have a podcast coming up next week as well, so subscribe, become a subscriber, share, like, leave a comment, all of those things. We want you to be a part of this move of enlightening people, providing clarity about who we were then, which informs us as to who we are right now. Thank you for joining us for Listen St. Louis with Carol Daniel right here on 9 PBS.